Hello, hello, hello. I'm Alistair Humphreys, and this is Ask an Adventure. Dung, dung, dung. This is where they have the little music, which always really annoys me on YouTube because I don't care about the video musicy bit. I just get on with the thing. Get on with it, Al. Okay, right, fine. Ooh, question. Go on then. Next question. I know that many adventurers leave their children for extended periods of time to go on adventures, and they say that it provides a good model for kids about taking risks and following dreams. I completely agree, all very true. However, I wonder if that is a stock answer to justify self-indulgence and passing responsibility for childcare onto a partner. I also totally agree with that as well. I enjoy micro-adventures myself, so I'm asking specifically about longer trips. I completely agree with both of those things. You read endless stories about anything in life where people go, oh, what inspired me in my life was that my parents did all sorts of crazy things and they were very inspiring. Or they went away doing all sorts of things around the world, business, adventure, who knows what, it's difficult, ambitious stuff, and that really inspired me to do X, Y, and Z. Brilliant. You also read any number of stories of people who are like, my life's messed up because my parents were away all the time and they didn't care about me because they were just chasing their own stupid, selfish things. So I think those two things are both entirely true and mostly mutually incompatible. So the choice of where you want to fall on the spectrum is just a personal moral judgment, I suppose. Good luck with it. I love your podcast. It sounds amazing. Can you tell us about the equipment and software you use? So the very simple answer here is that I wanted my podcast to sound good, but couldn't be bothered doing months of research. So I Googled Tim Ferriss podcast. He has a blog post. If you Google Tim Ferriss podcast equipment, there's a blog post that pops up with all the kit he uses, the microphones, the recorder thingy, and I just clicked buy on all those things. It cost me about 500 quid, but I thought if it's good enough for Tim Ferriss, it's good enough for me. And then the software I use is called Transistor.fm, and it's fantastic. Running a podcast is so simple. You just upload the audio stuff, and then a thing like Transistor, there's lots of other companies like that, but Transistor is what I use and it's great. You press a few buttons and it automatically puts it onto Apple Podcasts, Spotify, all the different podcast apps. So it really is very, very simple to do. To what extent does filming when travelling on your own take some of the joy out of travelling? You must have to retread your steps to capture the perfect shot and spend time framing and reframing. Filming adventures totally changes the dynamic of the experience, absolutely. And if you're not really interested in filming, then it will be so annoying. And if you're traveling with someone whose heart is not really into filmmaking, then it's not really going to work very well. So yeah, massively takes you out of the moment. It's a huge pain. It takes ages. And then coming home to edit the stupid thing is like a vast iceberg thing. So there's lots of downsides to filming adventures. On the plus side, I personally love it, and I really love, well, I like photography and things, so I really enjoy setting up the camera and trying to get the nice framing and just get it all just nice and get that to focus on that and then focus back on the person. I like that sort of stuff, so I really enjoy that. I also, ever since I started telling adventure stories, I've really enjoyed traveling along. And one of my ways I pass the time is daydreaming. How will I communicate this story with people who aren't here? I've always enjoyed that, whether it's in words or in film format. And so filming trips, for me, adds a real extra dimension of creativity and thought and planning. So I really like it. But yeah, geez, it's a pain. You walk past the camera, you come back again to collect it. You have to faff around charging batteries. It costs a load of money. It's heavy to carry. So yeah, it's a massive pain. You have to really want to do it, I think. When you go on long bike tours, what do you do with all your gear when you have to go into a shop or restaurant? If I'm going into some sort of shop or cafe where I can still see the bike, then I have a really, really thin bike lock that is a tiny little lock like that, and you pull out the wire. It's really thin, kind of coat hanger sort of thin wire that I can just lock the bike with, you could easily get through it with some bolt cutters in 5 seconds, but it will definitely stop some scally just grabbing your bike and riding off. So if I can see the bike, I just use that and go into the place and just keep an eye on it. If I can't see it, for example, if I have to go into, let's say, a big supermarket, then I wheel the bike in, and when the security guard comes over and gets cross at me, I explain and say, please don't just leave it here for a couple of minutes, that's fine. If I have to stay in a hotel or something, I take the bike into my hotel room. I tend not to stay in hotels where people care if you do that, so yeah, I keep my eye on it at all times, essentially. When I'm camping, you can lock it to a tree, put all the bags in the tent. But, to be honest, if you're camping wild in a spot where you actually think someone might come and nick your stuff in the night, you probably want to move your tent and go camp somewhere else, because the ideal campsite, which is what 99.99% of them are, is a campsite where nobody on earth knows that you're there, and therefore you're not going to get your stuff nicked. Any suggestions for adaptive adventuring for those with limited mobility? I'm disabled, nonetheless I'm always keenly aware to try and get out on adventures. I could go on an adventure solo, but for someone who needs care full time, it's not just about them wanting to go, they also have to convince their carer to go. And I can see that asking that of a paid carer or even an unpaid family member is an imposition. Would love to hear your thoughts. Gosh, well, the main thing that your point raises for me, Glenn, is for me just to remember how blooming lucky I am that I have my health and my fitness and I can just clear off and go do stuff. And there's a vast army of carers, even just here in Britain. I think you're not in Britain. There's literally millions of people caring for people in the UK, and it's very important to keep remembering that and the difficulties of that. I'm afraid I don't have any answer beyond a glib answer. I know that the Calvert Trust in the UK is fantastic for doing adventures for people with disabilities, but I really don't know the answers. However, if you're watching this video and you can shed some decent information on this, please email me. I'd love to share that out to my newsletters of trying to help broaden adaptive adventuring. I would like to go on an adventure through the Looking Glass. Do you know much about quantum adventure? I don't understand. Here, this one's more my thing. If you don't mind me speaking for you, I'm going to go for American accent here. If you don't mind me speaking for your whole culture, I've always wondered why the Brits make their tea from bags rather than loose-leaved. I love a cup of myself, and while I'm no connoisseur, I find loose tea so superior to any bag stuff that I'd never buy tea bags. Why bags, man? Why? Oh, I do like loose leaf tea. It feels very, very old-fashioned and posh and Miss Marple, or the sort of thing where you get it in some sort of hotel cafe and you think, oh, crikey, this is going to cost about £6. I like it, but to be honest, as a tea connoisseur Brit, I'm not sure I notice enough difference to be bothered with a hassle, really. Which is interesting, because I don't like coffee bags and I hate instant coffee, but yeah, don't mind. Morning, I've completed a year-long challenge that was based around bikes and getting people together. I made a pledge to cycle to 52 different pubs in 52 weeks with different friends. We had all sorts of adventures, bike crashes, met weird, wonderful people, looked at a lot of maps. This was an excellent way of getting a tiny bit of adventure into our busy working lives. Do you need stuff like this for your newsletter? Yes, I do. I want you to email me, Barry Saville, about this fantastic 52-week, 52-pub adventure, and I'll definitely put it in my newsletter. Next question says, where'd you get your adventure ideas from? I know you've recreated a couple. Well, hopefully people will now be getting their adventure ideas from my newsletter. Ideas like pub adventures. I've recreated a bit of a Wilfred Thesiger adventure, a Laurie Lee adventure. I spent a lot of time and effort trying to do a Captain Scott adventure. So quite a few of my adventures are inspired by books. So reading books or browsing maps and trying to think of interesting ways to get from A to B, often in a type of journey that I haven't done before. They're generally what I do, reading and browsing maps, really. Hi Al, what exactly do you talk about at schools? Do you do chronological presentations about your journey, or do you have certain topics and messages to deliver? And how long do you usually speak for? Well, my talks at schools, I guess it would depend a bit on what the teacher asks me to focus on. But generally speaking, pretty much all the time, I do a chronological slideshow of my adventures with pictures. Here's when I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this, and then I did this. The end. And I tend to maybe talk for, say, half an hour through photos, telling hopefully interesting, exciting stories. I think a really good speaker would break that up in the way with questions from kids and get them a bit more engaged. But I'm a bit lazy and old-fashioned. I like the kids to sit in silence, be quiet and listen to me for about, say, half an hour, and hopefully me telling them exciting stuff that makes them want to sit in silence and listen to me, and then fill the remaining time with Q&A. And I really like Q&A because it allows the kids to talk about whatever things interest them. And then in terms of topics and messages, I suppose I try and sow ideas that anyone can live adventurously, the notion of trying to dare yourself to be brave, and that being scared doesn't mean that you're a bad person, but being scared and daring yourself to do something difficult is pretty cool, and that you might think you're not the sort of person who can do adventures, but I promise you that you are. And the only difference between me having done my adventures and someone who hasn't done them is that I went and did them. So those sort of encouraging messages for young kids I generally talk about. How long do you usually speak for? My preference is about 30 minutes of talking and 15 minutes of questions. That's my ideal preference. I think we get smarter, braver and more imaginative when we spend time outside an adventure. What do you think? I think we get braver for sure. Do we get more imaginative? I guess you need to sort of think laterally and creatively to solve problems and stuff along the way. Do we get smarter? I don't think we get smarter. I think we get maybe a clarity of thought. We have time to process what we feel and believe and think about and prioritize. But I think I get smarter from reading books and talking to people, really. I'd buy another Micro Adventure t-shirt off you if you've got loads going spare. My old one's a bit bedraggled. Do you have any medium? Thank you. Yeah, so 10 years ago I started to make Micro Adventure t-shirts. It was quite cool. Sold, I don't know how many I sold. A couple of hundred, I guess. Pretty cool. But I got a bit carried away and so I ordered loads. And I learned the important lesson that retail is a nightmare in terms of stock quota. And I've pretty much been wearing unsold Micro Adventure t-shirts for the last 10 years. Being an adventurer, do you miss out on the it all to escape from? That's a really good question. Do I miss out? Because I guess the joy of adventures for normal people with normal jobs is just that delicious escape of, oh, I can leave this job I don't like and boom, I'm in the mountains. So I suppose if you're in that situation, you would get a greater thrill and joy than I do, perhaps, who am lucky enough to go and do loads of adventures. But I don't regret that, because I think that's kind of like saying it's really nice to bang your head against a brick wall because it hurts, just because then you stop. Oh, that feels nice. So I don't think I missed that overall. Thank you for your questions. Please keep them coming in. Fill the form in below. Let's have some more questions for Ask an Adventurer. See you next time.